I sat in the living room, lost in thought, when whispers from the kitchen began to tickle my ears. My brow furrowed as I strained to catch a conversation between my husband, Jeffrey, and our son, Daniel, which seemed oddly urgent. For months now, my husband had become like a stranger to me, our conversation sparse and stilted. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to hear. Jeffrey's voice, cold as winter frost, sent a chill down my spine as he declared they needed to get rid of me. He whispered that I was causing too many problems, and this was the only way he could do what he wanted. My heart raced like a frightened rabbit, and I felt it shatter with each word I overheard. Daniel's voice, thick with unshed tears, protested weakly, saying they couldn't do that. I adjusted my position in the chair, breath coming in short gasps as I tried to capture more details. Maybe they're talking about something else, I thought desperately. It can't be about me. But my mind whirled, trying to understand what my husband and son were planning. Daniel's voice, trembling with fear and uncertainty, asked if this wasn't going too far. Jeffrey's response was as cold as a tombstone. He is the one who makes the decisions. As panic bloomed inside me like a poisonous flower, I tried to process what I was hearing. They were planning to get rid of someone. Was it me? But why? What had I done to deserve such betrayal? I wanted to confront them immediately, but something held me back. I need to know more before I act, I thought, struggling to maintain my composure. Maybe they're talking about something else. I can't judge my family like this, I told myself. They've always taken care of me. Slowly, I stood up and made my way towards the kitchen, each step measured and precise, the result of years adapting to blindness. Tapping my aluminum cane against the floor, I practiced controlling the fear that threatened to overwhelm me. What are they planning? My mind couldn't help but repeat this question. As I reached the kitchen entrance, I paused to listen better. The whispers grew louder, then suddenly stopped. Jeffrey, hearing the tap of my cane, announced that I was moving. Then I heard hurried footsteps approaching. I backed away, returning to the living room and sitting down as if nothing had happened. They can't know I heard everything, I thought, trying to control my accelerated breathing. Jeffrey was the first to enter the room, addressing me with worry in his voice. I responded as naturally as I could, saying I was just resting. They'll be suspicious, I thought. I need to be strong. I need to find out what's going on. After a while, Daniel left, leaving me feeling even more distrustful. Jeffrey announced he was going out with Daniel, and I listened as they left, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I need to investigate while they're out, I decided, feeling a surge of inner resolve. Maybe there's something in the basement that can give me the answers I need, I thought, remembering how my husband had been spending more time than usual down there lately. My curiosity mingled with fear, spurring me into action. I can't just sit here and do nothing, I thought as I stood up and carefully made my way to the basement. I cautiously descended the basement stairs, each step I touched seeming to amplify the sound of my pounding heart. Finally reaching the basement, I felt along the walls for any clue to what was happening. I approached an old bookshelf that had been there for years. Behind it, I found a box I had never noticed before. The box was locked, and it felt like it contained something important. What is Jeffrey hiding here? I wondered, questions swirling in my head. Why would he hide anything from me? Unable to open the box, I realized I needed a key. I remembered that Jeffrey sometimes hid keys behind the painting in the living room. He always thought no one noticed, but I could hear the jingle of keys near the wall-mounted painting. My hearing was perfect, so I knew I could find something there. It has to be there, I decided, feeling a new wave of determination. If Jeffrey is hiding something from me, I need to find out as soon as possible, especially if he's planning something against me. I carefully made my way back up the stairs, each step more resolute and determined than the last. To discover what was happening, I returned to the living room and went straight to the painting. I lifted the frame and, as expected, found a small key hidden there. Here it is, I thought, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. Now I need to know what's in that box, I told myself. I made my way back to the basement, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. With trembling fingers, I used the key to open the box, my mind racing with possibilities. As I reached inside, my fingertips brushed against objects I couldn't immediately identify. Then, I felt it, a cell phone, but not the model Jeffrey usually carried. A chill ran down my spine as I realized he was definitely hiding something from me. Why would Jeffrey hide all of this here? I questioned myself, feeling a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I quickly activated the talkback feature, desperate to learn what secrets this phone held. But as I listened, nothing explained what Jeffrey had said to our son. Determined to uncover the truth, I carefully returned everything to its place, resolving to play dumb until I had more information. I have to be strong, I told myself as I drifted off to sleep that night. Maybe this is all just a misunderstanding. My husband couldn't betray me like this, could he? I awoke with a car being started, disoriented and confused to find myself in the back seat of a car. My last memory was of falling asleep the night before, my head full of troubling thoughts. Jeffrey? Daniel? What's going on? I asked, my voice quivering with fear. Only silence answered me, and I felt panic rising in my chest like a tidal wave. Where are we going? I demanded, fighting to keep my voice steady. Jeffrey continued driving without a word, while Daniel sat quietly crying in the front seat. I heard Daniel plead with his father, begging him not to do this, offering to stay and help me. The desperation in his voice broke my heart. Jeffrey's cold response chilled me to the bone as he told Daniel to be quiet. Finally, the car stopped on a deserted road, and I felt Jeffrey roughly pulling me out. You can't do this, Jeffrey, I begged, tears streaming down my face. Please don't leave me here. Jeffrey's words cut through me like a knife as he called me a burden, saying he couldn't take care of me anymore. I cried out, feeling utterly helpless, begging him not to separate me from our son. Daniel rushed to embrace me, pleading with his father, but Jeffrey forcefully pushed him back into the car. Goodbye, Bridget, Jeffrey said coldly, and I heard the car driven away, leaving me alone on the side of the road. A wave of despair washed over me as I realized my situation, alone, without money or resources, in an unknown location. How did it come to this? I thought, fighting back tears, how can I live without my son? I knew I needed to find help, but I had no idea where to go. I have to find a way home, I told myself as I struggled to my feet. I can't give up. My son needs me now more than ever. The heat of the asphalt under my feet felt like the only real thing at that moment. I began walking along the road, my uncertain steps guided only by the hope of finding someone to help me. Jeffrey hadn't even left me with my aluminum cane, and I panicked as I heard cars passing by. I was terrified of walking too close to the road and getting hit, but I had no way to orient myself. My hearing was my only guide, but it wasn't enough. Will anyone find me here? Will anyone help? I wondered, trying to cling to hope. The sound of cars around me felt oppressive, every noise amplified by my vulnerability. I can't give up. I have to find a way home, I kept telling myself like a mantra, pushing myself to keep moving. Suddenly, I heard a car approaching rapidly. I turned towards the sound, feeling a mix of hope and fear. Is it Jeffrey coming back, or someone who might help me? I thought, stopping to wait as the car drew closer. As the engine sound grew louder, I felt my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Please, let it be someone who can help me, I prayed silently, preparing to call out for assistance. The car zoomed past me without even slowing down, and I waved my arms desperately, but to no avail. A fresh wave of despair washed over me as I realized I'd been ignored, left behind like yesterday's newspaper. I trudged on, the midday heat making my journey even more challenging. I have to find help, I told myself, clinging to determination like a lifeline. I can't give up now. After what felt like hours, I heard another car approaching. I turned again, waving my arms more vigorously this time, hope fluttering in my chest like a caged bird. The car slowed and stopped beside me, and I pleaded with a voice trembling with hope, asking for a ride. The driver rolled down the window, but the seconds of silence before their response felt like an eternity. Then came the crushing blow. They couldn't help, and I listened as they drove away, leaving me more disheartened than ever. Why won't anyone help me? I wondered, feeling as invisible as the air around me. As the day wore on, I continued walking and pleading with passing cars, fear gnawing at me that I might be going in the wrong direction. Everyone ignored me, and I felt the pain of rejection growing sharper with each passing vehicle. My mouth was dry, and I could feel my body weakening with each step. I need water, food, anything, I thought, but no one stopped to help. As night fell, I was exhausted, hungry, and thirsty, unsure of what to do next. I sat on the edge of the road, the cold seeping into my bones like an unwelcome guest. The silence of the night amplified my anxiety, every sound seeming to echo in the void. I knew I needed to find shelter, but the darkness and my blindness made everything even more challenging. I have to find a safe place, I thought as I struggled to my feet. It's too dangerous to be out here alone at night. Every step was uncertain, the fear of tripping or falling a constant companion. I heard the distant sound of running water and decided to move towards it, hoping to find a bridge or something I could use for shelter. After what felt like an eternity of walking, I found a small bridge, the space underneath it seeming like my only option. I knelt down, feeling the ground to make sure it was safe. At least I'll be protected from the wind here, I thought, feeling a small measure of relief. I lay down on the hard ground, trying to warm myself, tears streaming down my face as I thought of Daniel. Please let him be okay, I whispered before finally drifting off to sleep, exhaustion taking over. When I awoke, the night had grown even colder, and my body ached from the hard ground. I have to find food and water, I thought, feeling around, hoping to find some fruit trees. Hunger and thirst began to consume me, each movement seeming to drain me further. I can't give up now, I told myself. I have to keep thinking positively, or I'll lose the strength to go on. I stood up, determined to continue walking and find help, clinging to hope like a lifeline in a stormy sea. I couldn't just lie there sleeping. I had to walk, maybe it would help chase away the cold, I told myself, trying to muster some encouragement. The road was uncertain and dangerous, but I knew I couldn't just wait there for a miracle. Maybe I'll find someone who can help, I thought, feeling a surge of inner resolve. There must still be good people out there. I just need to find them. As I walked, I listened to the distant sounds of passing cars. Does no one notice how much I'm suffering? I wondered, feeling the pain of rejection and abandonment almost unbearable. Even my husband left me here. How can I expect kindness from strangers? Perhaps no one's helping me because I'm not worth the effort. I'm not important to anyone, I thought, unable to shake off these dark thoughts. This night seemed endless as I wandered, searching for any glimmer of hope. Every sound in the darkness was a potential threat, but I had no choice but to keep moving forward. The hunger and thirst were overwhelming, but the need to survive was even greater. I'll find a way out of this. I have to get back to my son and take control of my life, I promised myself. Suddenly, I heard the ear-splitting sound of a nearby car. It was different, more threatening. What was that? I thought, feeling a new kind of fear. Then I heard the sound of a collision so close I could feel the ground vibrate. Is someone hurt? Am I in danger? Was it a serious accident? I questioned, trying to gauge the collision and pinpoint where the sound came from. I knew I had to check, even if I didn't know how I could help. Please don't let it be too serious. Even so, I have to help, I thought as I started walking towards the sound. Adrenaline coursed through my body as I tried to move as quickly as possible, hoping to be able to help if there were injuries. I began walking towards the collision sound, guided by the metallic noises and what I could now clearly hear as groans. Please don't let anyone be seriously hurt. I only know basic first aid, I thought as I cautiously approached. The darkness and my blindness made each step more difficult and dangerous, but I knew I couldn't ignore someone who might be in trouble. As I got closer, the smell of gasoline and burning rubber filled the air. I felt the ground vibrate beneath my feet, increasing my anxiety. Maybe there's a phone in the car I can use to call emergency services, I thought, trying to feel my way around and get my bearings. The groans grew louder, indicating the injured person was nearby. Where are you? Can you hear me? Focus on my voice, stay awake, I instructed, trying to help as I approached. I'm here to help. Keep making noise. I can't see, I explained, listening for the sound of hands tapping surfaces. Guided by the sound, I found the injured person. It was a man. I could tell from his gasping sounds, clearly in pain from the accident. "Are you okay? Where does it hurt?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. The man mumbled something unintelligible, and I knelt beside him, trying to assess the severity of the situation. "Stay calm. I'll do what I can," I said, trying to comfort him. I knew time was crucial and I needed to act quickly. I began using my first aid knowledge, something I'd learned years ago but never thought I'd need in a situation like this. "I have to stay calm if I'm going to be any help," I thought as I applied pressure to what felt like a heavily bleeding wound. "You'll be all right," I said, trying to reassure him. The man mumbled something, then fell silent. "Stay with me. You need to stay conscious," I said urgently. "I can't leave you like this. I promise I'll get help," I vowed, feeling helpless but determined. "Someone has to come by here," I thought desperately as I called for help. The man gripped my hand tightly. His voice was full of pain and desperation. "Don't leave me," he pleaded in a barely audible whisper. "I won't leave you. I promise," I replied firmly, despite the fear I could hear in my voice. I knew I had to do more, but was limited by my own condition and the isolation of our location. "Help! Someone, please help!" I shouted, hoping someone would hear. I began feeling in the man's pockets, and while keeping pressure on the wound, I finally found a cell phone. It took time to dial the emergency number as the phone wasn't adapted for the disabled, but I had memorized the position of most keys on phones, so after a few attempts, I finally managed to make the call. I tried to get the man to tell me the address of where we were, but it took him a few seconds to say the street name. However, I didn't recognize the name. I felt a bitter pang of realization that my husband had abandoned me far from home, probably too far for me to ever return. Pushing those thoughts aside, I continued pressing on the man's wound, checking his heartbeat by ear and keeping him talking to stay awake. When the ambulance finally arrived, I felt a rush of relief as the paramedics rushed towards us. I thanked them for coming so quickly, explaining how I'd heard the accident and came to help. My voice trembled as I told them about the severity of the crash, trying not to let my fear show. One of the paramedics assured me they'd take care of him, calling me ma'am, as they began examining the man. I stepped back, feeling helpless as they worked. I did everything I could, I thought, observing the situation through the sounds and smells around me. "You're strong. You'll be okay," I told myself, trying to convince myself I'd done enough. The inner conflict was intense, unable to shake the feeling that I could have done more. The man, still conscious, called out to me weakly, thanking me for saving his life. I introduced myself as Bridget Torres, telling him I'd only done what anyone would do. As the paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher, I wished him a speedy recovery. Before being put in the ambulance, the man gripped my hand again. He introduced himself as Derek Reyes and promised to find me and express his gratitude. He asked a paramedic to take a card from his pocket, telling me to call the number if I needed anything. I nodded, telling him not to worry about that and to focus on getting better. As the ambulance drove away, I suddenly remembered my own predicament. How am I going to get home? I wondered, realizing the address Derek had mentioned was too far from my house. I felt more lost than ever as I heard the ambulance fading into the distance. Derek was on his way to the hospital, and I was alone again on that desolate road. What am I going to do now? I thought, trying to hold back tears. I was exhausted, hungry, and disoriented. I need to find something to eat, some water. I can't go on like this much longer, I told myself, trying to find some strength. I started walking, feeling the ground with my feet to avoid tripping on stones or holes. I have to find help, someone to take me home, I thought, trying to hold on to hope. Each step was an effort, and the night's chill made everything even more difficult. As I walked, I heard footsteps behind me. Who could that be? Did one of the paramedics come back? I wondered, turning my head towards the sound. Please let it be someone who can help. Please let it be a good person, I told myself, trying to stay calm. As the footsteps got closer, I felt my heart racing. Who's there? I asked, my voice shaking. Please, I need help. I'm lost and suffering from hunger and thirst. Please, I pleaded, hoping for a positive response. A man approached, his voice filled with suspicion as he asked what I was doing alone on the road. His tone was far from friendly, and his laugh sent a shiver of fear through me. I tried not to sound desperate as I explained that I'd been abandoned and was trying to get home to my son. "Can you help me?" I asked, my voice filled with hope. The man was silent for a moment, then came closer. "Let's see what you've got here," he said, starting to search my pockets. I felt panic spreading inside me. I felt the man's hands searching my pockets, and panic spread through me like wildfire. "Please," I begged, my voice trembling like a leaf in the wind, "I don't have anything valuable." I tried to step away, repeating that I was just trying to get home, my words coming out in a shaky whisper. The man ignored my protests, continuing his search until he found the gold necklace I'd received from my late mother. It was my last connection to her, a tangible piece of her memory that I'd clung to through all these years. "Is this all?" he asked gruffly, yanking the necklace from my neck with such force I felt it break. Tears streamed down my face as I pleaded, explaining it was all I had, that I'd been abandoned here. But the man was already walking away, the sound of his footsteps on the pavement fading into the night. Why are people so cruel? I thought, feeling more alone than I ever had in my 60-plus years of life. I continued walking, each step more painful than the last, like treading on broken glass. "I can't give up," I told myself, using memories of Daniel to keep moving, like a mantra against the despair. The hunger and thirst were overwhelming, the night's chills seeping into my bones like an unwelcome guest. Time crawled by, and I encountered few people on the road. Those I did meet either ignored me or hurled insults, each rejection inflating my sense of despair like a balloon ready to burst. Every step was a monumental effort, my body screaming for water, food, anything. I prayed, trying to maintain my unwavering faith, begging God for help, for Daniel's sake. But fatigue overtook me, and I collapsed to the ground, unable to go on. "This is it," I thought as dizziness washed over me and I felt consciousness slipping away. I awoke to the rough touch of a thin blanket against my skin. The smell and feel of the fabric told me I was in an unfamiliar place. I opened my eyes, groping around for clues about my location. A harsh voice cut through my confusion, a woman speaking in a coarse tone. She explained that I had been found unconscious on the street and brought here to prevent me from freezing to death. I tried to sit up, my body still weak and aching, and thanked her in a shaky voice. The woman sighed, clearly irritated, and explained she hadn't helped out of kindness, but to avoid legal trouble. She shoved a piece of what felt like dry bread into my hand, telling me to eat and then leave. I accepted the bread gratefully, though deeply hurt by her attitude. As I slowly ate, feeling the pangs of hunger ease slightly with each bite, I thought about finding a way home. The woman continued to look at me with disdain, telling me to hurry up and leave, that she didn't want vagrants here. I felt tears rolling down my cheeks, but held my head high. "I'll leave as soon as I can," I replied, trying to hide the pain in my voice. "Please, God, help me," I thought as I finished the bread, wondering what my next move would be in this seemingly endless nightmare. I struggled to my feet after finishing the meager meal, my body aching like I'd aged a decade overnight. I have to keep going. I can't give up now, I thought, trying to muster the last shreds of my dignity. I thanked the woman who'd reluctantly sheltered me, asking for her name, but she just sighed, clearly relieved to see me leave. As I fumbled my way back to the street, I felt the hot sun beating down on me, a stark contrast to the cold night I'd endured. Where do I go from here? I wondered, feeling despair expanding in my chest like a balloon. I told myself I needed a plan, trying to think through my next move like a chess player in a losing game. Each step was a monumental effort, as if I were wading through thick mud. I can't stop. I have to find somewhere safe, I thought as I inched along the sidewalk. People rushed past me, ignoring my pleas for help, their indifference cutting deeper than any knife. How am I supposed to know where to go when no one will answer me? Which direction should I take? I questioned, feeling the weight of rejection pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. As I walked, almost praying for help, I overheard two people arguing nearby. They were talking about me, calling me a crazy blind woman wandering around for days. My stomach knotted, realizing people thought I was insane and were simply ignoring me. I kept walking, trying to ignore the cruel whispers and comments around me, feeling more and more desperate. Suddenly, a group of young people approached, laughing and joking. One of them pushed me to the ground, pain shooting through my body as I fell. I begged them to leave me alone, but they just laughed, mocking me for being lost and confused. As I tried to shield myself from their attacks, I felt completely helpless. Why are they doing this? What did I do to deserve this? I wondered, feeling tears stream down my cheeks. Just when I thought I couldn't take anymore, I heard another voice approaching. An older woman called out, telling the youths to leave me alone. They hesitated but decided to leave, tossing one last insult as they went. The woman knelt beside me, offering her hand and asking if I was all right. I felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over me. "Thank you for helping me," I said, taking her hand to stand up. I admitted how tired and hungry I was, feeling vulnerable but grateful for her kindness. She helped me up and offered me a bottle of water, her voice gentle and reassuring. I took the water gratefully, feeling strength slowly returning to my body. "Thank you." "You're so kind," I said, overwhelmed by her compassion. The woman put her hand on my shoulder, telling me not to worry and that I needed to recover. She asked if I knew where I was and if I needed anything else. Before I could answer, I heard someone in the distance saying they'd seen someone looking for a blind woman. They mentioned that the person seemed very worried about her. My heart leapt with hope. Could it be Daniel? Had he found me after all this time? I stopped drinking the water, feeling a mix of hope and fear wash over me like a tidal wave. Someone's looking for me? Could it be Jeffrey? I thought, trying not to get my hopes up too high, like a child waiting for a long-lost parent. I need to know more about this, I decided, finishing my water with renewed determination. The kind woman helped me walk to a nearby small shelter, her gentle voice guiding me like a lighthouse in the fog. She told me I needed rest and a proper meal, her words a balm to my weary soul. I asked for her name, feeling my heart fill with gratitude like a warm, comforting blanket. She told me she's Diane and she softly squeezed my hand, her touch reassuring me that I wasn't alone anymore. At the shelter, she quickly set me up with a bed and a meal, the smell of soup and fresh bread making my mouth water. I thanked her, my voice thick with emotion, as I began to eat, feeling strength seep back into my body with each spoonful. I can't believe I've finally found help, I thought, tears of relief rolling down my cheeks like a cleansing rain. After the meal, I felt a bit better, like a wilted plant given water after a long drought. Diane tucked me in, telling me to rest and that I was safe now. I closed my eyes, feeling truly secure for the first time in what felt like an eternity. When I woke hours later, Diane told me about a man named Derek who had been looking for me, putting up posters with my name. My heart raced like a schoolgirl's at her first dance. Derek's looking for me? Yes, I know him. He had an accident on the road, and I think he wants to repay me. But there's no need, I helped him from my heart, I said, feeling a mixture of hope and gratitude. I asked to use the phone, careful not to ask for too much, afraid of being back on the streets again. Diane quickly handed me the phone, and I asked her to dial the number on Derek's card, thankful it hadn't been taken from me. As the phone rang, I prayed, please, let him answer, my hope hanging by a thread. Derek answered, his voice filled with concern, and I explained who I was and what had happened to me. He sighed with relief, telling me he was glad I was safe and that he would come to get me right away. I felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over me as I gave him the shelter's address. As I hung up, I felt a glimmer of hope. This could be my chance to find my son, Daniel. When Derek arrived at the shelter, I was ready to go, prepared to find my son. He greeted me with worry in his voice, promising to take me somewhere safe. I smiled, feeling deeply relieved, and told him I wanted to find my son, that Daniel needed me. As Derek carefully helped me up, I felt, for the first time in what seemed like forever, that things might just turn out okay. As Derek guided me out of the shelter, he told me I was strong. I made sure to thank Diane for her hospitality and kindness before we left. Derek first took me to his home, promising it was a safe place where I could fully recover. As we entered his cozy, well-kept house, he said this was the least he could do to repay me for what I'd done for him. For the first time in what felt like ages, I felt truly safe. While I recounted everything from being abandoned by my husband to fleeing with my son, Derek began planning how to confront Jeffrey. He assured me firmly that we couldn't let what Jeffrey did go unpunished and that we needed to find my son as soon as possible to ensure his safety too. Derek called a trusted lawyer to explain the situation before taking any action. The lawyer guaranteed he'd take all necessary measures to keep my son and me safe. As Derek looked at me, I could sense his determination to protect me at all costs. But I couldn't bear being apart from my son any longer, not knowing if he was safe. I insisted on going to Jeffrey's house to make sure my son was all right. Derek agreed, preparing for the confrontation and saying we'd solve this problem once and for all. Feeling a bit stronger, I insisted on accompanying Derek, my voice firm as I said I needed to face this too. When we arrived at my former home, Jeffrey was there. His voice was filled with genuine surprise and indignation when he saw us arrive. Derek stepped forward, his voice full of authority as he told Jeffrey he'd be held accountable for his actions. Jeffrey laughed nervously, trying to cover up his anxiety as he said he wouldn't take care of me anymore. I felt an inner anger swell up, and I asked him in a steady voice if he thought I'd want to rely on him after being left on the road like a worthless object. Derek approached Jeffrey with authority, suggesting he was in a delicate position and it would be wise to cooperate and hand over the child. Jeffrey knew he had no way out and asked in a defeated voice what else we wanted. I stepped forward, feeling the strength in my words as I said I just wanted my son back. Jeffrey, realizing he couldn't escape, let out a defeated sigh and confessed in a cold, contemptuous voice that after leaving me on the road, Daniel had cried incessantly. I felt a wave of anger wash over me as I realized he had abandoned my son too. I moved towards Jeffrey, guided by the sound of his ragged breathing, and slapped him across the face without hesitation. Derek quickly restrained me, trying to calm me down and saying we'd resolve this the right way. He swiftly made a call to the police, explaining the situation and what Jeffrey had done to his own son. As I listened, I felt a mix of fear and despair, but Derek squeezed my hand, promising we'd find Daniel. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as the police arrived quickly, arresting Jeffrey and beginning their search for Daniel. As the officers led him away, Jeffrey shouted that he deserved to be heard after taking care of me for years. One of the officers assured me they would find my son, and that Jeffrey would be punished for everything he'd done. My heart ached as I thought about finding Daniel, feeling as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. I couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to him, but I had to believe in his cleverness and resilience. Derek and I began our search for Daniel, going door to door near the place Jeffrey confessed to leaving him. I pleaded with everyone we met, my voice trembling with emotion, asking for help in finding my son. As we continued our search, I couldn't stop thinking about how scared Daniel must be, my poor baby, all alone. I silently vowed not to stop until I held him in my arms again, grateful for Derek's steady support beside me. My prayers were constant, begging God to keep my son safe and help us find him. After hours of searching, we finally got a lead from a woman who had seen a crying, lost-looking child in a nearby park. Hope surged through me like an electric current, and I urged Derek to take me there immediately. At the park, I began calling out for Daniel, my voice filled with desperation and longing. Suddenly, I heard a weak but familiar voice calling back, "Mom. Mom. Is that you?" Without hesitation, I ran towards Daniel's voice, my maternal instinct guiding me despite the potential dangers in my path. When I finally found him, I held him tight, tears streaming down my face as I checked him for any injuries. Daniel clung to me, sobbing that he'd been so scared and thought he'd never see me again. I reassured him, promising that I'd never let anything happen to him again and apologizing for being late. As Derek suggested we take Daniel to a safe place, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. I thanked Derek for saving our lives, feeling grateful that we could now start anew. We discovered that kind strangers in the park had given Daniel food and water, keeping him alive until we found him. After having Daniel checked by a doctor, we began adapting to our new life, free from Jeffrey's threats. As I held my son close, I whispered reassuringly, "Everything will be all right now, my darling. We're safe." I felt a wave of relief wash over me when I learned that Jeffrey would remain in custody. The police had uncovered a series of other crimes he'd committed, including fraud, which shed light on his true motives for abandoning Daniel and me. It turns out he'd been afraid I'd expose his illegal activities, as I'd been too observant of his behavior. Knowing Jeffrey was in prison allowed us to breathe easier, assured we'd never be hurt by him again. After some time, I found a job suited for the visually impaired, determined to rely on no one and provide a safe, loving home for Daniel and myself. Derek remained a constant, reassuring presence in our lives, helping us rebuild all we'd lost. He often told me we deserved all the happiness in the world, and that his respect for us grew daily after learning all we'd been through. With Derek's support, I began rebuilding my life with dignity and safety, reflecting on all the hardships I'd overcome and the strength I'd found within myself. As I worked, enjoying my newfound independence, I thought about how much I'd been through, but how I was stronger now than ever before. I had a happy, healthy son, a friend who'd helped me navigate the chaos, and a job I loved. I had everything I needed. I reminded myself that the future was ahead of us, and I intended to make the most of it with the people I loved. Daniel, too, began adapting to our new life free from his father's pressure. He'd always smile and tell me how happy he was in our new home, which I saw as proof we were on the right path. I thought about how wonderful it was to see my son happy, grateful for every day I spent with him. And so, Daniel and I began our new life, grateful for Derek's help and ready for the future. I looked ahead with determination, feeling stronger than ever before, ready to face the future with courage and gratitude. As I hugged my son, my heart full of hope and new beginnings, I told him we had so much to be thankful for and so much to build. Together, we'd achieve everything we dreamed of.